Happy New Year and welcome to the Poetry Box Live. I'm Shawn Aveningo Sanders, and I'm thrilled that you could join us for a little poetry today. For those of you who may be tuning in to our show for the first time, my husband and Robert and I run an independent press here in Beaverton, Oregon, known as the Poetry Box, where our mission is to help spread the love of poetry by curating and publishing work that stirs the senses. Since 2015, we've had the privilege of working with over 200 talented poets from all over the United States. Part of our commitment to our authors is to help them reach a larger audience through our Zoom shows. And today we're going coast to coast with three wonderful poets. We have Fred Zirm, who will be reading to us from Maryland. We have Kristin Roedell, who will be sharing poems from Washington State. And Kevin Vallejo is bringing us poems from Idaho. So let's get started with our first featured poet, which is Fred Zirm, the author of Cycling at Sunrise, a collection that shares not only his enthusiasm for cycling, but also a bit of his cyclist philosophy. Outside of directing plays and teaching drama and English, writing and writing have been Fred Zirm's two main occupations, just not at the same time, although he does often think of ideas for poems while on his bicycle. On the cycling side, he has completed several century rides, solo toured through Greece for a month, and climbed some of the most famous ascents from the Tour de France. On the writing side, his work has been published in about a dozen small literary magazines and anthologies. He's written two other chapbooks, Object Lessons from Main Street Rag and Rescue Dogs with the Poetry Box. Fred has retired from teaching and lives in Maryland with his wife and younger daughter, who put up with his rather time-consuming hobbies. It's my pleasure to welcome Fred Zirm.
Thank you very much, Shawn. It's a privilege and a surprise to be leading off. I'm usually last in the alphabet and bring up the rear. I'd like to start, if I may, with a poem from my previous chapbook as sort of a introduction, because it's in some ways an ars poetica. It's about writing poetry. It's the title poem, Rescue Dogs. So there's the title, and then there's an epigraph. Rescue Dogs. I tell my poetry workshop students, if you're stuck in a poem, just have a dog come in. Billy Collins. I picture a climbing party of novice poets trapped on a narrow, wind-battered ledge, tied together at the waist by an overextended metaphor. They collapse and gasp in the thin air of abstraction, calling out for help. At that moment, a St. Bernard, large-pawed and panting, scrambles over ice and rock to offer the climbers what they need, the chipped and weathered oaken cask of concrete images hanging from his furry neck. Or I imagine a lone poet, lost in deep woods of his own devising, as he tries to follow Dante or Frost, who have left no breadcrumbs or broken branches. Preoccupied, he stumbles over a hidden meaning and falls into an arcane abyss. At that moment, his faithful collie races barking to the farmhouse, where the mother, holding a dish towel, says, "She's trying to tell us something." Yeah, the father scowls and strokes his chin. Timmy's fallen down that damn well again. He spits in the barnyard dust, then wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. I told him to quit messing around with allegory. At this moment, my dog Snuff, a shepherd hound refugee from death row, looks up at me with the hurt but hopeful eyes of the once abandoned. I rise from my desk. Her tail thumps the floor as I scratch her head and then offer her the tethered freedom of the leash. She is once again delighted. The world is just beyond our door, and she can lead me through it. Like I said, I think of that, thank you. I think of that as a sort of an ars poetica, that dogs are one thing that has led me into and through the world, made me stop and pay a little more attention, which I think is the point of poetry, paying attention. The other thing over the years has been bikes. Literally, as Shawn mentioned, I spent a month by bike touring Greece solo, and I think I got to know the land and the people in a way that I wouldn't have if I had been zipping around in a car or a tour bus. The same goes for some of those ascents. I got to know them well and long, that type of thing. Now I'd like to segue to some poems about bikes, either literal physical or virtual bike trainers. This first one takes its title from an old Scottish whaling song. And just one word of explanation, the word Vuelta in it is the Spanish equivalent of the Tour de France. So the title from the whaling song. Farewell to Tarwathie. Judy Collins sings that old whaler's lament into my headphoned ears as I bike a virtual Vuelta on my high-tech trainer and think back to the age of vinyl around the first Earth Day when I eagerly unwrapped songs of the humpback whale only to find Martino's greatest hits inside. And now I cannot help but picture Al's character in The Godfather blowing bubbles with the fishes beneath the Greenland seas, or imagine Moby Dick tucked into a tuxedo in Vegas, crooning Spanish eyes, which takes me back to the Spanish Vuelta as my Wi-Fi falters a bit, so I begin to buffer on the final climb, but I keep pedaling, and I'm reminded of the endless mountains in Greece, and the young girl who found me a place to pitch my tent and park my overburdened bike when I felt lost in Ithaki, tired and alone and so far from home. So thanks. For me, the bike, there's the virtual, there's the memory, there's the physical, and there's Al Martino's greatest hits that for some reason showed up in songs of the humpback whale. As lots of us experience, the internet can also take us on a journey. So when I was trying to find out more about a bike ride in Salisbury, Maryland called the Seagull Century, Google took me for a ride. The Seagull Century. When I look up that bike ride online, it tells me all I need to know about its date and cost and route. But then I see what people also ask and discover the Century is unsurprisingly 100 miles long, and over 3,400 cyclists from over 34 states will probably take part, while the Metatona in the Dolomites draws about 9,000. Plus, the average seagull lives for 20 years. The lava gull is the rarest of the species. The running time of the Sydney production of that Russian classic was 2 hours and 35 minutes, and Trigorin's hobby was fishing. Which reminds me, Chekhov once said something like, if you have a bike in the beginning of a poem, it must be ridden by the end. So I click on the link and start last-minute registration. Thanks. And in the early 2000s, I was a competitive cyclist. And actually, my one trophy is back there, prominently displayed. Hey, third place because lots of people didn't show up. Anyway, it has made me a little bit of a slave for statistics. So, I'm usually computerized and looking at average speed and heart rate and watts per kilogram and all that, except for this one morning. Beyond measure. This morning, my broken cyclometer said I went nowhere in no time. So I could not be discouraged by how slowly I got there or proud of how far I had gone, but simply accepted the ride for what it was, the usual loop through Mayville and back, starting with what I once was and ending with what I am. I usually don't write formal poetry, but one of my favorite poems is Aveningo, The Waking by Theodore Roethke. And I was thinking of that Roethke poem one morning while writing and came up with this. Taking Roethke for a ride, biking before dawn. I spin so swiftly when I must go, going nowhere fast is like going somewhere slow. The road ahead is all I want to know. I don't dwell on what is past. I spin swiftly where I need to go. The morning air is all hum and flow. I want to make it last by going somewhere slow. The eastern sky begins its dim gray glow. My bike is small, the world is vast. I spin swiftly where I need to go. The sudden hills are both friend and foe that make me answer what I haven't asked by going nowhere fast and somewhere slow. By such shrinking, I begin to grow. What comes and goes never lasts, and all is going somewhere slow. I'll spin swiftly until it's time to go. Another thing I don't do very often is to take spin classes, but the one time I did inspired this little poem called Soul Cycle. Unlike the lilies of the field, we both toil and spin, as the instructor makes us climb an imaginary mount for a sermon in sweat. Blessed be the legs as they blur and burn, and cursed be the cramps. Blessed be the heart that pounds and the mouth that pants, for they keep time to our climb. Blessed be the lungs that threaten to burst, but don't, for they breathe into the blood, filling it with the fuel we need. And cursed be the breakfast we skipped to be here. Blessed be our companions who cannot surge ahead because we are all fixed to the floor. And cursed be the fact that all our hard work does not get us anywhere. Blessed be Foghat for slow ride. The rhythm is right. And Michael for thriller. We are smiling zombies pushing on our pedals as the video runs through our heads. But curse AC/DC for this highway to hell. And finally, bless the clock that declares this climb is done. This sermon ended. Amen. Lots of times poetry is about looking at things just differently, a different perspective. And this happened one morning when I just decided not to do my normal route in the normal way. This is called The Other Way Round. I rode my bike backwards today, not a circus stunt, just reversing my usual route. And I got a little lost, went a little slower, noticed the Queen Anne's lace along the road, and counted the goldfinches I startled, and discovered the other side of the hill is just as steep, and the wind is always in your face, no matter which way you ride. But I didn't care about my time, since I knew no matter how long it took me, it would still be my personal best. Just two more poems. One inspired by a Memorial Day morning ride once again to Mayville. Memorial Dawn. As I bike up the Mayville Hill, the street is lined with empty lawn chairs, placed there last night to save the best spots to see the perennial parade. Now the sunrise finds them still waiting for the marching band's one performance without a halftime score, for the Chamber of Commerce's convertible, complete with smiling queen, and for the kids on bicycles, wheels woven red, white, and blue. It's hours before the scheduled start, but the real parade has already passed, as invisible as the absent crowd, as silent as the deserted street. And finally, the last poem in Cycling at Sunrise. Failsafe. I don a bulky yellow vest each time I kayak, although my whitewater days are well behind me, and I'm unlikely to capsize on this calm lake. In my car, even on the shortest drive, I click my seatbelt into place, and on a plane, I would pack a parachute if I could. But my bike offers no pretense of protection from forgetful drivers, no belt or bumper to supplement my shiny helmet as I cycle solo down that long, long road. Nothing but two winking lights signaling anyone who can see, here I am, here I am. Please remember me. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to hearing the other two poets now.
Well, there you were, and we are going to remember this reading, Fred. How delightful.
Yeah.
I so enjoyed this. Oh my goodness. And I have to confess, I'm not much of a cyclist myself. I have a stationary bike upstairs. Last time I rode a bike, I had a rather I had an embarrassing crash with a drunk man who stumbled out in my path, and I did the classic, and I fell all the way sideways without taking my feet off the pedals. It was really embarrassing. But I enjoyed these poems so much, and you make biking sound so wonderful, so meditative, so just fun that I just might think about getting on a bike again. I don't know. Maybe. But this was truly delightful. Really, really a wonderful reading. Thank you so much for sharing these really great poems with us today, Fred. Our next poet today is Kristin Roedell, authors of Lessons in Buoyancy, which explores the life of woman and her transformation through time. Kristin Roedell is a graduate of Whitman College and the University of Washington Law School and practiced family law for 10 years in the Pacific Northwest. Her poetry has appeared in over 70 journals, magazines, and anthologies, including the Journal of American Medical Association, Switched on Gutenberg, Crab Creek Review, and the Poeming Pigeon. Kristin was the winner of the National NAMI Open Minds Quarterly Poetry Contest. She's the author of two chapbooks, Girls with Gardenias and Night Circus, plus another full-length collection, Downriver, which was a finalist in the Quercus Review Poetry Contest. Her new book, Lessons in Buoyancy, was a finalist under a different title in the Blue Light Poetry Contest. Please welcome Kristin Roedell.
Hi, thank you for coming. I wanted to say a few things about the book before I begin. Lessons in Buoyancy was a product of getting older and thinking about my work over time. When I started publishing 15 years ago in my late 40s, what I wrote and published were confessional poems, the events of my life, and a way to make sense of them. I decided to compile the work that I'd written, and I was looking for a way to structure that work. I became attracted to the archetype of the tripart goddess, which exists across cultures. The goddess is pictured as a maiden, a mother, and a crone entwined. It felt like a simple expression of a woman's life and a natural way to present my poetry. So I'm reading today in that format, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. So I'm going to start with the maiden poems. These are about mental illness, and I thought they were important to include. The first one is titled Lessons in Buoyancy, and it was the inspiration for the title. Off I-5 over Lake Washington, the bridge is low to the water. The fish are lipping the underside of green glass. And just there, we made love under a silver birch, the reeds bent beneath us. The Overlake Hospital is beside the exit on the 5th floor, and the doors are locked. I dreamt a long fall that year, and then silence, undulating like the grass beneath the lake, and I awoke on suicide watch. A pale nurse followed me room to room, the way the tide follows the moon. I left quarters on the desk for the phone and let it ring endlessly through our empty rooms. From the windows laced with mesh, I could see the parking lot, a mural of darting minnows, a lady in a caramel coat, a boy and his mother holding hands, but never you opening the car door. 2 weeks I lay waiting as my roommate breathed in the dark, her long hair lying across her face in damp strands. And finally, I took the bus home. I was given a brown sack of pills, and drowned by their violet twilight, I nearly missed the stop. You were gone. The house was as empty as the lake after a windstorm. Still, I decided to stay afloat. The way back from that was long, but it always is. And that's the first one. This one's titled, So I Can Stop Falling. I would live in a shack down a red dirt road with a tattered rooster that slept past dawn, and I'd cast hen's feed like fishing nets and pick dandelions for dinner. I would farm alone in the frost, keep sheep in the kitchen for warmth, and go out at dawn in pajamas and boots to sink an axe through the ice in the trough. I would pace a widow's walk as years and sea winds pass unchanged, as salt rhymed the porch swing and rust pulled the mailbox down, only to sit on the back steps with my three-legged cat as the pills for my darkness expire, so I can stop falling, speak clearly, and sleep before dawn. I'd rather the night fall, like snow quietly descending. And this one is titled Sacred Ground, and it was nominated for a pushcart prize by the Poetry Box. Both disease and meds will rob you of yourself, my psychiatrist said, glasses suspended from a necklace brash as trappers trading beads. I am strung by the neck by every dose. I cannot trade with anyone, but I take the effacing pills. I remember I chose this compromised wellness. It's too late to choose anew. To my lover, I say, there must be a wilderness at the edge of memory and mind. It will have its raw, untilled splendor. If I grow silent, believe I still thrive. I'm blooming like cacti in crimson petals. I'm dreaming of oceans asleep in the dunes. Remember, I am remembering you in every moment. Then let me be unwise and forget my pills. I want to wander the dark among Joshua trees. I want to sleep with the sandbats that wake to hunt mayflies. I want to nest with a peregrine on a cliff's edge. Be kind and let me go mad beneath the devouring moon. And these ones are from the section of the book titled The Mother. This one's titled My Mother Called Me a Long, Tall Drink of Water. My mother called me a long, tall drink of water, and I understand when you lie on my bed after a bath with your wet hair like brown branches forking up above your face, your magnolia feet hanging off the bottom of the mattress, and your eyes level with mine on the pillow, blue and blue endlessly. This is the bridge you build between my mother and I without trying. This is the route she didn't find. And I say it to you. I know I will find you somewhere later, remembering. Mark my words, mark this road. I will come this way and 100 others. This one is titled A Dollar Tree Jelly Jar for an Ashtray. You came home again, and we sat in the RV with a pack of Virginia Slims, blowing smoke rings until we smoldered. And I said, let's pull the RV out of the drive, follow I-5 south, and make a nickel apiece picking oranges. Or drive west to the ocean beaches, mire the RV in the sand, and collect sea glass as the wheel rims rust with brine. We could become red and gold kites with swallows' tails, find a 9-year-old girl to hold the strings, and we'd rise above the dunes as stars, going home like fireflies in a Dollar Tree jelly jar. This one is for Genevieve. It's titled, If You Must Come. Beyond this world there lies another, past shoal and brambles, chokeberries and poison oleander, dark thickets and culverts that lead nowhere. And I come that way myself, but there are ways within ways to go there. Prisoned cove, besmirched shore, past birds covered with creosote, into marrow of disquiet, and it is hard to get there and harder to go. But beyond, barren scrub blooms, brambles become sea thistle, culverts unfurl meadows, and mussels hem shores. Come and you are named anew. You will have another light about you, a filament lit like a wick within, and for you there will be no dark absolute. Beyond your world there lies another, and I have done what I can. I have written you a map. I have written you a path. I have written you a door. And if you must come, come this way. This one is about estrangement, and it's called To Stop Grieving Her. Let go of what you've lost. It's where grace is found, or what the Holy Ghost means, or why the stars sometimes fall but still trail glorious tales. You can put up a white marker for every absent touch, with bones, with ashes, with stones, and even a feather set lightly on water will help you lay a loss. This is the way I learned when the one I loved first had gone. Find a feather from a small bird, set it on the river, and let the rippling current take it. You may lean over the grassy bank, but you cannot pluck it out. Then mourn, that feather once took flight. At night, it drew close to the stars. When it comes to the river's bend, when it's just a bit of light, let your grief for that lovely child go by. And there are just 3 more. This one's about an experience that I had a number of years ago, and it's called After Hours in Chinatown. The spa was down an alleyway with chipped green doors and frosted glass. The stylist took the Metro 6 and left their tools in jars of bleach, but the real room was behind the shop. There women, small and tightly coiffed, went nude or draped in satin robes, while steam poured out from everything. Caves of drains and trees of showers, basins of lakes and spigot streams. That place was a country of its own. I left my clothes on a lacquered bench. The ladies peered from cornered eyes at spidered breasts and salmon thighs. They formed in flocks like birds and raised their brows and parted wings. But an old attendant touched my hand. She laid me down beside a sink and lathered me with myrtle soap. She scrubbed me with a bristle brush, but didn't speak, just wiped her brow as if up to her ancient thighs. She stood in mirrored pools with slanted sun and fields of rice. She washed me like a child until I'd never lied or misused love. This one is for my mother, who died of Lewy body dementia. You fall the sudden way rhododendrons lose petals in June. You remember the salt mines in Salzburg. You point to every shoe to the door. Your husband's head is stippled with eczema the way aphids eat a pink rose. He takes it personally when you call him Mister. He waters the hydrangea, throws out the old milk, and reads the paper to you. You believe you have two husbands in your bed, one loving and one cruel, and you wonder what people will think. But I tell you, this is the truth for every married woman. Your disease counts backwards. I was 10 when you loved artichoke hearts. I was 5 when you made me bean soup. I am waiting for that effacing tide. And when it comes, I will turn it around and count your fingers, count the clover, count the sparrows in the yard. And this last one is for my husband, and it's titled, It's the Old Love I Want. It's the old love I want. The way you put your battered boots by the front door so you don't bring the pasture in. How you lift the arthritic collie out of her shady groove beneath the porch and carry her up the stairs. I remember when you helped a neighbor dig a hole for his best dog. You stood beside the grave and took off your cap, and I felt the soul love still. At night we spooned, taking turns, lying on the left and the right, your shoulder, my elbow, the bones that are lately aching. And I think to myself, if you should die before me, I will lift you from the bed and set you in a shady spot. I will whisper the old words, the soul ones, and bury you as you want, in your boots, in the long grass beneath the pasture. And thank you for listening.
Oh, Kristin, that last poem really got me. I have to say that as a woman of a certain age, I so appreciate these poems, and especially the vulnerability and candor in which you write about depression and dementia and grief. But you don't never lose sight of celebrating the beauty in life that abounds no matter our age, which is magical, which is wonderful. And I really want to thank you for sharing these poems with us today, and especially for reading Sacred Ground. That was a real treat for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Our final featured poet is K.D. Vallejo, the author of Energy and Nothingness, Poems for the First 100 Years of Quantum Mechanics. K.D. Vallejo is originally from the Ciudad Juarez, El Paso community and currently lives in Idaho Falls. He is interested in the aesthetic space where science, philosophy, and language meet. Kevin is a reviewer and member of the editorial team of Consilience, and his work has been featured in Beyond Queer Words, Menagerie 208, The Marbled Sigh, and the technical journals Reports of Progress in Physics, ACS Nano, among others. Kevin daylights as a condensed matter physicist, stacking atoms for a U.S. Department of Energy National Laboratory. Please welcome Kevin Vallejo.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Shawn and Robert, for the wonderful work that you do to give poets a chance to showcase the things that we want to say. I really enjoy the previous two poets. I love how, from a perspective of biking and a threefold goddess, we take such different looks at life. And I think it's that same curiosity that we share as people who like to read, to write, that I attempt to look a little deeper into the things that make the world. And full disclosure, this book was born out of a thesis for my undergrad degree that never saw the light of day. Turns out that the topics were too high for my head and I was unable to complete it. So over the years, I was just thinking about it until I discovered that maybe just putting together a bunch of words through bibliographies and boring technical prose was not the way to do it. And that's when I decanted for just put it in the form of poems. So what I'm going to read to you are essentially questions that I have that if anybody tells you they have the answer, they're probably lying to you. We probably require to look at these problems from an aesthetic, a philosophical perspective, as well as spend millions of dollars of taxpayer money on the experimental side. So with that in mind, the first poem I want to share with you is the proem to my book, just titled Proem. This is just another axe blow, one we take after a breather, to keep mining down the universal mountain. Our muscles no longer work alone. They have been honed. The work of previous miners has let us know where we need to hit. We know how to grab the axe for optimal endurance. The first miners in India, China, Athens have exorcised the spirits out of the rocks. Along the shores of the Mediterranean, technology was christened by the scientific olive oil. We have now imbued new spirits to the rocks. The it has come from the bit. And now we dig. We dig, we find, we toss. We dig some more to see what lies beneath it all. And then from that, I want to pivot to one that actually is very dear to me, and it's titled Library. The section marked as Science has the book where I have made a world of make-believe, my home. The neighboring books are all about obscure machines my fellow men adore and operate without regard for us. Behind my back, there's other shelves with high, poetic thoughts conceived by minds of old, whose echoed voices cross the space between the painted cave and our trembling space. If time's a cycle, then the loop will close. Around the corner, where the hallway ends, I hear the whispers of the sleepless who enjoy a different type of books. On plants, on fish, on God, on teaching love supreme. The library allows, for now, a book for every single thing. And when the time to leave is upon me, hopefully before they close, I wish my bones to be reabsorbed by soil, by tree, from which the pulp will make the page, on which the world will write the book they need. Thank you, folks. From there, I want to move on to a slightly darker aspect on this poem that I called Of Dark Matter We Can Only Lightly Speak. Of dark matter we can only lightly speak. During darkness, only in sunlight dust exists. In my coffee, creamer is a gentle chaos. Truth's the smoke on rumored cigarettes, burning in the secret halls and labs. Orbits and missiles and infrared vision, we hand over weapons to an 18-year-old. We'll bring our prosperity to the whole world. How? We'll only speak lightly of these dark matters. Thank you. And then I now want to pivot to one slightly less dark, in which I guess I became too mysterious in this particular poem, but I just want to share the note that you could find at the end of the book if you feel so inclined to buy 20 copies. That this actually relates to the different ways in which we think of fields from a scientific perspective. And it is appropriately called fields. A velvet feeling on my toes, the grass, caresses softly as the notus blows. A wavy motion makes the grasslands dance. A green that's been of sunlight starved reminds me of the summer nights at home. Between the hills, the sun will softly lick the blades of grass who, like my skin, will bask in such a warmth. The shadows, cold, provide a refuge for when it's too much. A serpentine, intense wind can produce a gust that travels up and down the hill. The way the air is pushed around can change how grass will grow and how its patterns fade. Atop the mountain, I will feel my best, so close to sun and moon. The stars will call by being away from cold and grassless ground. At last, the sheer and strain of life I will leave behind. Thank you, thank you. And then I want to move more towards the moment in which a study leaves behind the data acquisition part, and now you have to start doing things with that data. And for in this the year 2026, as it has been for the past 20 years probably, that is necessarily done with code. So this poem is written in the form of a computer code, and it's called binary feeling. Love will equal the input. What is it that you feel when you see me? If love is exactly the weight of all oceans and its surrounding darkness, the pressure strain of expanding fusion and contracting gravity, the agoraphobia of eternity and the crushing passage of time, the taste of an air-fried warm cheese Danish, the longing for a family we have not yet built, the pleasure of laying down after chaos by your side, and all the things I don't yet know I can imagine. Then print, I love you too. Else, exit. Thank you. And then I want to share let me see. Here it is. This one is called indistinguishability because it is one of the few ideas that actually helped me build this book, and how the things that we don't know or feel we don't understand still help us talk to each other right now. Had it not been for the shared properties of these electronic particles that make electricity flow, this communication would not be here. And yet we don't fully understand what's happening. So one of those processes is called indistinguishability. The room is gray, the walls are gray. It is just me in here, and I see myself. Exactly me in every aspect, right in front of me. There is no location, for there is no room. No consciousness, no me. It is just me, right in front of me. Thank you, everyone. And then, just to close, I want to read you the last poem of the book, which is appropriately the longest, and it is the epilogue, which I titled, Imagine What You Will Know Tomorrow. The limits of the world are where my breath is insufficient to allow me to be upset. An endless ocean is all around our land. To leave these shores and learn what lies beyond, abandoning the comfort of your home, make sailors out of all of those who go. An earthly shadow on the lunar disk, through numbers and immensity revealed, more than 20 times around the globe, a trip would take to go from Earth to Moon. Continuing the path of reason made us want to know the distance to the sun, and if its light was what we yearned to know, the cost of stellar travel would decrease. Alas, the eyes of Aristarchus failed to differentiate the stars' short dance. And still, his legacy with us remains, a way to measure high above the sky. The spheres remained 2,000 years until the polished glass became our eyes to see. Away from war and from the market did Professor Galilei focus his gaze. He saw so many stars that escaped our eyes. They cast a doubt on where our planet sat. If they were all as fiery as our sun, the starry messenger could now get shot. 350 years ago we learned that Mars is half as far as is the sun. Cassini made our solar system sigh explode. The planets suddenly were gone. And less than just 200 years ago, the universe, no longer spheres, was still both infinite and small, beginningless, confined to just how far the stars could be. Then, opening his eyes at night, Olvers discovered that in darkness, boundaries had to exist, for light had gone extinct despite the seemingly unending light. In 1838, a team of scholars independently found out how far the stars could truly be from us, succeeding where the Greek eyes couldn't see. Struve, Henderson, and Bessel, 6 months apart, measured two stars. The distance between Earth and Sun, a joke, 300,000 times beyond they were. The whispers of a dance Miss Leavitt heard. In order to understand how far they are, the universe is now the Milky Way, and 90,000 times as big, as vast. Still, the universe has always been. And after 7 years went by, a war, so big the world appeared to be too small. 100 years ago, a nebula would make the cosmos huge. The lawyer, who dissatisfied with law, returned to look up at the sky, found out Andromeda did not contain just dust, another galaxy, its own, another vast number of stars, alone no more the Milky Way would be. As Hubble searched the universe at large, the galaxies he found were going away, and from the colors on the planets he saw, our neighborhood to be just one of them. The universe is now 2 billion years, because if galaxies can live, it means some time ago much closer they had been. A moment of creation has emerged. Ironically, on Earth, the rock told us they had been hanging out 3 billion years. Static is the universe no more. As galaxies and stars precess and dance, so does the space on which they float around. They grow apart as marks on a balloon. A little over 80 years have passed. Our math has been refined through telescopes and satellites that see beyond the sky. The cosmos, in its current size, has gone to be 300 times as large, again. And we suspect its age to be 14 billion years of age. It went from endless, eternal being to the longest time in just the span of this last century. We went from knowledge of our cave and tree to stars that hang above the sky at night, from solar system to our galaxy, to vastness greatness than the one we can see. Imagine what we'll see in 100 years. Thank you, everyone.
Kevin, I have to say, for all of us that don't have a clue how to stack atoms, but may have a novice fascination with things like dark matter, this book is really a delightful peek behind the quantum curtain. I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate all the helpful notes in the back as well. I enjoy how you merge philosophy and science with nature and love and the important issues of our day to create this poetry. And I have to also say, I'm so glad you read Binary because, as a former programming nerd myself, that was one of my favorite poems in the book. So thanks for reading that one. And thank you so much for expanding our minds today. Let's have a giant round of applause for all of our readers today. I'd like to thank our three featured talented poets, Fred Zirm, Kristin Roedell, and Kevin Vallejo. And I'm sorry for those of you who may have tuned in to hear Mike Schneider. We had all kinds of technical difficulties, and he couldn't hear us on our end, so we weren't able to have him read today. I also want to thank you, our audience, for supporting our authors and joining us for another edition of the Poetry Box Live. With everything going on in the world these days, it's so nice to gather here in our Zoom room and share this art form that we love. And we will be back for a new show on Saturday, February 7th to celebrate the winners of our 2025 chapbook contest. We'll have John Arthur, Katie Dozier, and John Wojciewicz, with a very special guest reader, our judge, George Bilger. And please note, for our February show, we will be starting 3 hours earlier than normal, and that'll start at 1 p.m. Pacific time for those of who are regular viewers of our show. And speaking of our chapbook contest, I hope all of our poets watching our show have been fine-tuning their manuscripts. We open for our 9th annual chapbook contest on February 1st, and our guest judge this year is the amazing, inspiring poet Rosemary Watola Tromer. And this year, we've even increased our prize money for the winning poets, and you can find all the details at thepoetrybox.com. And if you'd like to stay up to date on our shows, as well as submission opportunities, feel free to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. There's a sign-up form at the bottom of each webpage at thepoetrybox.com. Thanks again for joining us today. Have a fantastic rest of the weekend. You guys are great.